The Las Vegas Raiders have made a ton of changes this offseason, and it seems like some of those decisions are starting to upset Davante Adams. But to fully understand the situation and how we've gotten to where we are now with Davante Adams and the Raiders, we really need to go back to last year and look at the results of the Raiders in the 2022 season. Now, going into the season, I saw a lot of people that had the Raiders in the playoffs and even potentially competing for the AFC West. I even saw some analysts pick them to win the division, beat out the Kansas City Chiefs, beat out the Los Angeles Chargers. They brought in a new coach, Josh McDaniels, the longtime offensive coordinator from the New England Patriots. They traded for one of the best wide receivers in the league in Davante Adams from the Green Bay Packers. And they also made some other marginal signings for their team, including Chandler Jones, the former Arizona Cardinal. They were bringing back their core of offensive pieces in Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. And many people looked at that offense and said, hey, if you add Davante Adams into it, that's one of the most dynamic offenses in the entire NFL. You have a good pass rushing duo now with Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. And then you have some young pieces in the secondary that may be able to make your defense a pretty sound unit. But with all the changes for the Raiders in terms of their coaching staff and all the new players that they brought in, they did not get the success that they were looking for in terms of the win column. They finished the year 6-11, and their very slow start, starting 2-7, was ultimately their downfall. They blew multiple double-digit leads to start the season, and you could just tell early on that this was not going to be a very well-coached team. But I think the writing on the wall for this past Raiders regime was really during week number 17 against the San Francisco 49ers. That's when they decided to bench their longtime franchise quarterback Derek Carr in relief for Jarrett Stidham. And at the time, that brought so much controversy because of what Derek Carr has done for the Raiders organization and their team the last several years. Through all the John Gruden stuff, through all the Henry Ruggs stuff, and all the other BS that he and the other players on the Raiders have had to deal with, Carr still kept his team afloat. He brought them to the playoffs back in 2021. So for them to just kick him to the curb so suddenly like they did, I think just shook people the wrong way. And it's not like Derek Carr was having a terrible season. He threw for 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions with 3,500 yards. It was a typical Derek Carr season. I don't think anybody has viewed Derek Carr as a top 5 quarterback in the recent years, but he wasn't playing terrible football. I know he came off of a rough couple of weeks, but overall his body of work and what he's done for the Raiders, I thought that they treated him kind of poorly in that situation. But after all of that drama went down, it was clear to everybody that Derek Carr was not going to be back as the Raiders quarterback, and they were going to be fighting their new franchise face for the first time in basically a decade. But instead of going after a young rookie quarterback in a pretty nice quarterback class with the likes of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, or even Anthony Richardson, or even trying to trade for a quarterback who is seen as an upgrade over Derek Carr like Aaron Rodgers or even Lamar Jackson potentially, the Raiders did not go that route. They decided to sign Jimmy Garoppolo, the former quarterback who played under Josh McDaniels in New England. And once again, this move brought a ton of controversy because Jimmy Garoppolo is not much better, or is he even better than Derek Carr? So you got rid of one of the best quarterbacks in your franchise history for a guy who is probably not even better than him. If you want to make the case that Jimmy G and Derek Carr are similar quarterbacks and they're basically the same thing, that's fine. You can make that argument, but I would also say that Jimmy G also misses a lot of time. He's routinely hurt, and Derek Carr outside of one season has been a rock for the Raiders at the quarterback position, and you cannot take that for granted. So when they did ultimately sign Jimmy G to a 3-year $72.75 million contract, I saw a lot of Raiders fans and a lot of NFL fans just kind of laugh at what the Raiders were doing. But that was not the only huge move that they would make on their offense. They would also get rid of Darren Waller, one of the best tight ends in the league, for only a 3rd round pick to the New York Giants. I know Darren Waller hasn't been super reliable, and I know I just talked about Jimmy G and how his reliability is a huge concern, but when he's playing, there's no doubt that Waller is a top 5 tight end, and he's one of the most dynamic weapons in the entire league. We really only got to see him in 6 games last year with the other talent on that offense with Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams. I really would have loved to see how that played out this year. Darren Waller on one side of the field with Davante Adams on the other side, and then Josh Jacobs in the backfield. That's a very scary trio, and honestly might be the best running back, tight end, and wide receiver trio in the league. So I wasn't a huge fan of that move either for the Raiders. I thought they should have tried at least one more year to make it work with Waller. To replace him, though, they signed Jacoby Myers, another former New England Patriot, to a 3-year, $33 million deal with 24 of it guaranteed. Myers is a pretty good wide receiver. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 2 for them now. Keep Hunter Renfrow in the slot, and then you have a pairing of Jacoby Myers and Davante Adams. It's a pretty solid unit. But as far as the actual tight end position goes, they brought in a plethora of players, including OJ Howard and Austin Hooper in free agency. And then in the draft, one of my favorite picks and best value picks in the 2nd round was Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. So although all 3 of those players may not have the elite catching ability of a Darren Waller, they may honestly be better than they were as a complete unit than last year. Now they have a well-rounded tight end that they can build around in Michael Mayer. And that's a perfect segue to the rest of the Las Vegas Raiders draft, which they really used to attack their defense. As an overall unit, the Raiders defense has been pretty poor the last last few years. Honestly, the last time I remember the Raiders having a pretty sufficient defense was prime Khalil Mack days. So it's been a minute, but I really like what they did with their first pick, getting Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Tyree Wilson may have the highest upside out of any edge rusher in this draft. I thought it was good value to get him at number 7 overall. I saw some mocks even have him going top 3, top 5. So getting a guy with elite tools where he can learn from Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, I think has a chance to be a huge hit for the Raiders. With Chandler Jones kind of slowing down as he's ending the end of his career, I think it's great to get another piece on your defensive line. If Tyree Wilson does reach his full potential, you'll have probably the best pass rushing duo in the NFL with Max Crosby on one side. You can put Tyree Wilson on the other. And then in the 3rd round, they take Byron Young, a defensive tackle out of Alabama. He's 6'3", around 300 pounds. He's going to again help out that depth on that line. And then in the 4th round, they got much needed help in the secondary with Jacorian Bennett out of Maryland. So it was clear what the Raiders' mindset was heading into the draft. They really wanted to improve their defense and get some more young talent. But now that all of the offseason moves for the Raiders have kind of died down, now there's some new drama regarding Davante Adams and the team. If you remember, a big reason why Davante Adams came to the Raiders in the first place was to reunite with his former college quarterback Derek Carr. I honestly think if he knew Carr was going to be gone after one season, he was not going to sign off on a trade to be a part of the team. I think he viewed this as the second stage of his career where he was going to spend multiple years in Las Vegas with Carr, hopefully put up some good numbers, maybe even win a Super Bowl. And dating back to even last season with how they treated Carr, you could kind of tell that things were a little bit off regarding Davante Adams and what he thought about the Raiders' decision. And early in the offseason, he was even trying to recruit his former quarterback Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers. We now know that he went to the New York Jets and he did not come to the Raiders, but it wasn't because of a lack of trying by Davante Adams. He did try to get him to Las Vegas. So after they signed Jimmy Garoppolo, it was kind of awkward. I know Davante Adams put out a tweet saying like, hey, let's go Jimmy G. But really dating back to the end of last season, it's kind of been one thing after another of Davante Adams just kind of subtly showing his unhappiness with the organization. And just a few days ago, he once again hit the headlines regarding things that he had to say about the Raiders organization. Davante Adams told The Ringer, the front office think that this is the best bet for us right now to put us in a position to be urgent. We don't see eye to eye on what we think is best for us right now. He went on to say, I'm going to have to buy into this and try to be as optimistic as possible. It's not what I expected to happen, but it's something that's the reality now. My goal is to win a Super Bowl with this team, and that's why I didn't come here just to be cute with Derek Carr. It is to really try and have a shot and change this organization. And after those comments went viral and hit social media, Davante Adams went to Instagram and posted a picture on his Instagram story with the Raiders GM. But I think everybody on the outside looking in knows kind of the situation of what's going on and how Davante Adams really feels, and I honestly can't blame him. Adams is going to be 31 this year. His best football is not ahead of him. He's not going to be getting better. So him kind of feeling like I might be wasting my career here a little bit, I really do understand why he feels that way with everything that the Raiders have done the past 2 years. So is Davante Adams on the trade market? Is he potentially going to be traded to a Super Bowl contending team? I don't really see that happening this year, at least because of how recent it was when the Raiders gave up multiple picks and paid him a lot of money to be their new star wide receiver. But if things go poorly this year and the Raiders are once again on the outside looking in of the playoff picture, I can definitely see some rumors happening in the 2024 offseason, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. So maybe the Raiders shock everybody, myself included, and they go on to make the playoffs, maybe even win a playoff game, and all is well with Adams and the team. But with how stacked the AFC is, with how stacked the AFC West is, with the Chiefs, the Chargers, and maybe even the Broncos have a resurgence with Sean Payton now. So I just don't see the Raiders being a true threat in the AFC, but that's why these games are played, to see if these kind of predictions become true or not. But let me know what you think about the Las Vegas Raiders and Davante Adams, and how many games you think the Raiders are going to win in 2023. Also, let me know if you think Davante Adams will finish out his contract with the Raiders, or if you see him getting traded in the future. But anyway, subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching the video, and I will catch you guys in my next one.